Oneness is given. You and I and our world are of a piece. One of the transcendentals, as the medieval philosophers called it, one of the great characteristics of being is unity. One of the great paradoxes of the world of creation, as it is explained in Genesis, is that the diversity comes from the oneness. It is the one creator God manifest in diversity. But that diversity in turn points back to the oneness. So to become me, to become you, is to become one. I think life is a process of ongoing encounter and engagement through relationships, out of which develops certain vision, out of which must develop concrete details, which promote the relationship and the vision and the details, and so there's a spiraling effect. If I was any good at graphic art, that would be a spiral, not a flat two-dimensional diagram. And the relationships, as I've said, are fourfold. With the mystery, with God, the one, the law, then, call God what you like. The higher power. With yourself, with others, with the world. If you think that way, if you say that's the core of my existence, and I want to promote that, and I want to live that, and I want to see that flourish in the world, that will give rise to a vision. That will give rise to a vision that has a moral component, because if you think relationships are primary, it lays claim to your behaviour in a specific way. If relationships are part of my essence, so to become me is to become with you, demands that I love you. It's part of my nature. There's nothing unique about the call to love in terms of Christian morality. I think Anne made that comment this morning. It's universal. We all know it as if by instinct. So there's a moral dimension to any vision that emerges from a realistic understanding of what it means to be a human being. There's also a theological dimension to it. Who is this one with whom I relate? Does this one care about me? John Courtney Murray, in his book The Problem of God, a series of lectures given in 1963, suggests that the problem of modern atheism is essentially the same as the problem of Old Testament struggling with God. Not does God exist. That's not really the issue, John Courtney Murray suggests. But so what? That's the issue. If God exists, is God with you? Does God matter? Is God relevant? Does God care? What is the enduring, the wonderful, the great promise of the Old Testament? Go to Exodus chapter 3, verses 1 through 15, for example. And again, John Courtney Murray does a magnificent exegesis of that. The great promise, I shall be with you. It is given in the context of the promise of liberation. I'll be there. Now, who is the I? Moses wants to know, and it's a fair question. Well, who are you? And God says, I am who I am. The famous tetragrammaton. YHWH. In Hebrew, written Hebrew doesn't have any vowels. Spoken Hebrew does, so it takes the teacher to speak the vowels to tell you what it means. To this day, nobody is quite sure what that means, but it means something like, I am who I am. John Courtney Murray says the promise understood in that name, like that name, is, I'll be with you, I'll be there as who I am, shall I be there. So, when you are in the desert and you are dying of thirst and hunger, remember the promise, I am with you. That's the promise, not, oh, I will fix things up for you, I will give you a trouble-free life. No. The essence of the promise is to be with us. And when you are prosperous, and when you are stable and politically flourishing, also remember I am there. This is a major crisis in 20th century Judaism. If If you've never read Elie Wiesel's marvellous book, Night, he describes the scene there. He was a 14-year-old Hungarian Jewish boy caught up in the Holocaust. His father died in his arms. But one of the rituals, if I can use that word, in the camps was if anyone was caught doing the wrong thing, there was a public hanging. And this man and these two little boys were caught with some kind of explosive. So there's a ritual hanging. The little boy, because he was emaciated, hadn't eaten anything decent for months, wasn't heavy enough to hang. So he hung on the bit of wire and died a very slow and dreadful death. And all the inmates were made to walk around and look at him in the eye. And Elie Wiesel, as a little boy, heard an old Jew behind him say, "Where is God?" The eternal question. If you've promised to be with us, what is going on here? Surely if you are with us, this can't be happening. And somebody said, "There is God," and pointed at the little boy. Now, people have said of Elie Wiesel, well, he became an atheist at that point. He felt in his heart, that's God, God is about to die. He said, no. Because I have faith, I can argue with God and say, why? The promise of God, I am with you, is a profoundly Jewish Christian belief that we have. And it touches our vision. That enables us to see the world and see our lives and history in certain